Lewis and Clark were sent to find the Northwest Passage and to explore the Louisiana Purchase. Jefferson funded the trip $2,500. Lewis and Clark went across the Mississippi River on April 8, 1804. The crew got supplies like whiskey, high-tech rifles, and scientific instruments, gifts for native tribes in St. Louis, and Lewis studied doctoring. They started off on the Missouri River on May 14th. There were 33 people in the whole journey. Among the crew, York was Clark's slave and went all the way with the whole crew. After 2 months on the Missouri River, it was 4th of July and they fired the cannon. There was still discipline on the boats and some people got whipped. Sergeant Floyd was the only person to die on the trip and died August 20th. Once they got to the Great Plains, they were amazed and saw many new and different plants and creatures. They were the first white men on the Great Plains. They saw many herds of buffalo, millions of them, and it amazed every single crew member.
Lewis and Clark spent a whole afternoon trying to catch a prairie dog. They finally did and decided to send it back. After traveling farther west on the Missouri River, they came across the Teton Sioux, one of the most fiercest groups of Native Americans ever.
By October, they have traveled 1,600 miles and stopped for the winter with the Mandan Indians. They built a fort across the river from the Mandan's fort. It was called Fort Mandan. It was super cold that winter. It got to be 38 below zero and 45 below zero. York, Clark's slave, interested the Mandan Indians. Lewis and Clark hired Sacagawea's husband because they wanted Sacagawea on the trip. Sacagawea had a son named John Baptiste. After a long cold winter with the Mandan, they headed west again April 7th, 1805. They also named landmarks like creeks and mountains after names of the people on the trip. The crew had troubles killing grizzly bears on the trip. Lewis and Clark got to a big falls and they had to portage 18.5 miles around it. It took them a whole month to get around it. They came to 3 forks in the river and didn't know which direction to go. They named them each and took the one called Jefferson. They were looking for some Shoshone Indians because they needed to find some horses, and they spotted Indians August 11th, but they ran away from them. August 12, 1805, they found the headwaters of the Missouri River and were approaching the Continental Divide. They finally found the Shoshone Indians and they got some horses. Sacagawea found her brother in that tribe. To get to the Pacific Ocean, they had to go over the mountains and get on the river. So they chose the mountains, and they had troubles on the mountains. They didn't have food, and they didn't have other necessities. When they got out of the mountains, they found the Nez Perce, and they helped them get back on track. They headed downriver and dug out canoes. When they spotted Mount Hood, they knew they were close to the ocean. They thought they had reached the ocean, but they were in a big bay, and they called it Camp Disappointment. They were trapped there for 3 weeks, and then November 18th, 1805, they finally found the ocean. They thought they had traveled 4,162 miles. They built a fort on the south side of the Columbia and called it Fort Clatsop. All they ate was elk, and they ran out of supplies. They recorded 178 new plant species. They also recorded 122 new animal species. They headed back east March 23, 1806. They met the Nez Perce again and stayed there till the snow melted, and when they got to the Yellowstone River, Clark and Lewis's group split up, and Lewis's group got in a brawl with some Blackfeet Indians. They met up again August 12th, and they breached the Mandan villages August 14th. They saw a cow and realized they were close to home. Then they finally got to St. Louis September 23rd, 1806. Each man was awarded 320 acres and double pay. Lewis and Clark got more because they were the captains. Everybody went separate ways, and some went out west again, some got killed by Indians, one person went to Yellowstone, one person wrote a book. Sacagawea died during childbirth, and Clark took the baby and John Baptiste. Lewis was put in charge of governing the Louisiana Territory, and he did not do good at that. So then he went to Washington to defend his name, and then he finally committed suicide, and that's a very sad ending for him. Clark got married, and he moved to St. Louis, and he became an Indian agent, and he took in Sacagawea's kids. York did not get anything, but he got his freedom 5 years later. Thank you. This was done by Luke Dickinson, Jacob Stewart, and Gary Begsted.